The morning light spilled across the kitchen counter, glinting off the knife I hadn't yet put away from last night's dinner. It should have been harmless, just another tool waiting to be rinsed, but the blade was still wet. It was a Saturday, the kind where the air smells like fresh coffee and everything moves slower than a weekday. I'd gotten up before Ethan, my husband, because his teenage daughter, Lily, was spending the weekend with us, and I wanted to make pancakes before she woke up. I didn't hear her footsteps though. The house was too still. Ethan came in a few minutes later, rubbing his eyes, muttering about some late-night work call. His phone was in his hand, screen dark, thumb resting over the power button, a second too long before he shoved it in his pocket. Ethan was the kind of man people trusted instantly, easy smile, steady voice. He'd been my safe harbor after my first marriage fell apart. Or at least that's what I thought when we got married 3 years ago. He wasn't the type to lose his cool, not even when Lily was at her most impossible. But lately, his temper had been different. Quieter, colder. I told myself it was stress. Everyone gets stressed. When I first met Lily, she'd barely look at me. Her mom had been gone for years, but she still kept her distance, like she thought getting close to me would be a betrayal. Ethan said she'd come around, and eventually she did. Kind of. She'd sit at the kitchen island and tell me about school, or how she hated her dad's rules, and sometimes she'd even laugh at my bad jokes. Still, there were moments when she'd just shut down mid-sentence, eyes going flat like she'd remembered something she shouldn't say. After breakfast, Ethan offered to take Lily to the park. I stayed behind to clean up, glad for the quiet. The dishwasher was humming when my phone buzzed. It wasn't a message, just a notification from an old, barely used Facebook account I'd forgotten to disable. The post was from a woman I didn't recognize, but her profile picture caught my attention. She was standing in front of the same lake Ethan had taken Lily to last month. Same bench, same angle. The caption, "When the person you've waited years for finally finds you again." I clicked on her profile before I could think better of it. Her name was Claire. Every photo was from places I knew, restaurants we'd been to, parks near our neighborhood, the same coffee shop where Ethan and I had our first date. And there he was, in the background of one picture, half-turned, wearing the gray hoodie he swore he'd thrown out. When they got back, Ethan was in a good mood, joking with Lily. He kissed me on the cheek, like nothing was wrong. But I couldn't stop replaying that photo in my head. I started noticing things. The way he'd set his phone face down at dinner. How he'd step outside to check the weather but stay gone for 10 minutes. How Lily's mood would swing after those moments. Smiling 1 minute, shutting down the next. One night, Lily was at the table doing homework when she asked, "Do you think people can love two people at the same time?" I tried to keep my voice light. "Why do you ask?" She shrugged, chewing on her pen. "Dad says sometimes life is complicated." I wanted to press her, but the look in her eyes made me back off. The next week, I told Ethan I was going to my sister's for the evening. I drove around the block instead, parked down the street, and waited. At 7:12, a car pulled into our driveway. Claire stepped out. I stayed in the shadows, heart pounding, watching her walk straight to the door without knocking. She had a key. When I came home later, Ethan acted like nothing had happened. He didn't mention Claire. He didn't mention anything. But the knife from that morning flashed in my mind again. That wasn't an accident. It had been left there, wet, as if someone had tested how sharp it was. I started keeping my own phone in my pocket. I copied down Claire's license plate. I checked our bank statements for cash withdrawals and found 3 in the past month. At night, I'd pretend to be asleep and listen to Ethan breathing beside me, steady and deep. I didn't tell anyone, not even my sister. One afternoon, Lily came home early from school. She looked pale. "Can I stay in your room for a while?" she asked. "Of course," I said, and she crawled into my bed like she used to when she was little. Half an hour later, I heard the front door open and close. Then muffled voices. Lily's shoulders tensed under the blanket. It all came to a head last Friday. I'd been waiting for Ethan to leave for his meeting, but instead he came into the kitchen, leaned against the counter, and said, "We need to talk." I braced myself. "I know you've been looking into things," he said. My stomach turned. "What things?" He smiled faintly. "Claire. The photos. I'm not stupid." He claimed it wasn't an affair, that he and Claire had been friends since before we met, that she'd been helping him deal with Lily's issues because she understood her better. It was a lie. I could hear it in the pauses. That's when Lily came in, holding her phone. She handed it to me without a word. On the screen was a message thread. Claire and Ethan. Talking about keeping her quiet, making it look like an accident. She's starting to suspect. But the her wasn't me. It was Lily. I looked at Ethan. He didn't flinch. She's been telling people things she shouldn't, he said calmly, as if that explained everything. And suddenly, it all snapped into place. The flat eyes. The way she'd shut down mid-sentence. The key Claire had. The withdrawals. He hadn't been cheating in the way I thought. He'd been covering for something much darker. I'd been planning for weeks, but not for a confrontation. For an exit. Every bit of evidence, the photos, the bank statements, the license plate, was already copied onto a flash drive in my purse. My sister had a copy too, with instructions if anything happened to me. I told Lily to go wait in the car. She didn't argue. Ethan called after me, voice low. "You'll regret this." I didn't look back. I didn't have to, because as I walked out the door, I knew he wasn't the one I'd regret leaving behind.